Please join me and bow your heads. Lord, help us live in your goodness and kindness each day and remind us that our actions express who we are more than our words. Amen.
It's time for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. I will ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Reesner.
Here.
Councilmember Snee.
Here.
Councilmember Thacker.
Here.
Councilmember Hayes.
Here.
Councilmember Herniman.
Here.
And Councilmember Kaler.
Here.
Thank you. Let the record show all 7 members of council are present this evening. Minutes from September 3rd, 2024, regular and committee of the whole were distributed. Any questions, corrections, deletions? Okay, minutes will stand approved as presented. We are now under committee reports. Finance Committee, Councilmember Reesner.
No report, Madam President.
Thank you. Law and Community Planning, Councilmember Kaler.
No report, Madam President.
Thank you. Materials and Equipment, Councilmember Jones.
No report, Madam President.
Personnel and Labor Relations, Councilmember Hayes.
Thank you, Madam President. A meeting was held in City Chambers on September 9th, 2024. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss Mayor's request for legislation 24-41. There are changes to chapters 149 and 143 of the Tiffin codified ordinances. Attending were committee members John Hayes, Cheyenne Thacker, and John Kaler. Also attending were council members Scott Horniman, Aaron Jones, Kevin Reesner, and Dennis Snee, Mayor Lee Wilkinson, City Administrator Nick Dutro, and Fire Chief Rob Chappell. Councilman Hayes called the meeting to order at 5:50 p.m. Chief Chappell explained the request for legislation is for updating hiring and promotional practices of the fire department. Chappell stated that these changes have been reviewed and are supported by city administration, the law director, firefighter union, police chief, and the Civil Service Commission. The 2 main changes involve the entrance eligibility list and the entrance examination. One change will be to reduce the minimum job advertising from 30 days to 14 days, while also accepting applications year-round. Chappell also highlighted the changes to the initial certification level requirements with the goal of attracting new staff. Thacker motioned to have the law director prepare legislation to accept the changes outlined in the request. Kaler seconded, and the motion carried on a vote of 3-0. Chappell requested the legislation be passed with an emergency for the hiring process changes to be in effect immediately. Thacker motioned to have an emergency clause added to the legislation. Hayes seconded, and the motion carried on a vote of 3-0. And with no other business, the meeting adjourned at 6:16 p.m. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, Recreation and Public Property, Councilmember Snee.
No report this time, Madam President.
Thank you. Street, Sidewalks, and Sewers, Councilmember Thacker.
Thank you, Madam President. I do have a report. A Street, Sidewalks, and Sewers Committee meeting was held on September 9th, 2024 at 5:15 p.m. in Council Chambers. Attending were committee members Cheyenne Thacker, Aaron Jones, Scott Horniman, Kevin Reesner, and Dennis Snee, along with Mayor Lee Wilkinson, City Administrator Nick Dutro, City Engineer Matt Watson, Council members John Kaler and John Hayes, and Fire Chief Chappell. Attending from the public was Jamie Fadley, resident and local business owner. Thacker called the meeting to order. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss Mayor's request for legislation 24-40 regarding the 2025 street paving program and any other business that may come before them. Watson updated the committee on the 2025 pavement repair program project. The annual review of the condition of streets within the city has produced a priority list of streets to be repaved. Those streets are attached here to as Exhibit A. The 2025 street paving program budget is $975,000. Reesner motioned to have the law director prepare the legislation. Snee seconded the motion. The motion passed 5-0. Watson informed the committee of other road projects happening in the city, including a section of 224 in the city near State Route 18 being repaved, and using reclamite on the streets from the 2023 pavement repair program project for $60,000. Reclamite is a product that reactivates the binding process of roads and rejuvenates the asphalt. Reesner and Snee had questions about the product regarding how it works and if it makes the road slicks. Jones had questions about potholes. Watson answered the committee members' questions. Hayes had a question about paving of private property behind Westgate for the Hobby Lobby project. Dutro said he would bring up some of the parking lot issues with the group working on the project. Jamie Fadley submitted a letter and map to the committee regarding the area around her business in Calvert High School and asked questions about the sidewalk area where her food truck is parked. The letter is attached as Exhibit B, and the map is attached as Exhibit C. Fadley asked questions about where she parks her food truck and wanted to know if there was a way to work together to come up with a solution for her to be able to park on the sidewalk. Fadley also suggested changing the direction of the one-way on Tiffin Street to the opposite direction. She thinks it will help the flow of traffic around her business in Calvert. Watson suggested that if a change were to happen on Tiffin Street, that it be done quickly because it is likely to be paved next year. Dutro suggested that the Traffic Safety Committee would be a better fit for her questions instead of this committee. With no further business, the committee adjourned at 5:49 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, and last but not least, Economic Development and Downtown Planning, Councilmember Herniman.
No report, Madam President.
Thank you. All right, does anyone see the need to schedule a committee of the whole meeting? Okay, that takes us under reports of the officers. His Honor, Mayor Lee Wilkinson.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a few items here. The Heritage Festival is coming up at the end of the week. The proclamation and official opening of the school days at Hedges Boyer Park will be on Friday morning at 9 a.m. And the Heritage Festival Parade will be on Saturday starting at 10. I'm also looking forward to the reopening of the Wall Street Railroad crossing. That should be later on this week if everything goes well. And that is a CSX Railroad project, not a City of Tiffin project. And that concludes my report, Madam President.
Short but sweet. Thank you. Takes us to Clerk of Council.
No report, Madam President.
Thank you. Director of Finance, Kathy Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a couple of things for tonight. Looking at the legislation, we have suspensions this evening, ordinance 24-79 and 24-80. And I just wanted to do like a brief explanation for everyone on that. So 24-79, we are putting a little bit more money into the budget for our income tax transfers. We are ahead right now as far as the revenue that's coming in for income tax. So when I put the budget together, I usually put in the budget, the amount that would go with that amount of revenue that I'm expecting. Since we're ahead, if that trend continues, we may end up being short. So I want to put a little bit extra in there to allow for that. And then also with that one, we have $15,000 more dollars needed for the landfill. There's some further testing requirements there. And then ordinance 24-80 is really just a reallocation for the street department. They did not have any part-time employees, but they have a contracted part-time employee that is through an employment agency that is not paid as a city employee. So they would like to take their part-time wages out of the budget and then put that amount back into the contractual services area so that they can keep that employee on. So that is what the suspensions are for this evening. And then I also have the financial report for you for August. Total receipts for the month are $5,345,058.94. Total expenses for the month were $4,824,315.75. The general fund unencumbered balance was $5,988,642.99. Income tax receipts for August 2024 were $869,937.14. The total annual decrease in income tax collections for August 24 compared to August 23 was $19,069.45. However, year-to-date income tax receipts are still up by 4.5%. The 0.25% portion of income tax receipts that was transferred into Fund 215 for public streets for August was $108,288.84. In August, the city received the second half of the real estate tax revenue check from the county. The amount that was deposited into general fund was $484,545.69. On Monday, September 9th, sewer revenue certified invoices more than 90 days past due to the county auditor. The last day for customers to pay on those invoices was August 30th. The assessments for sewer totaled $461,531.66. And then in addition, also, we certified sidewalk and mowing and trash assessments to the county by September 9th, and that totaled $2,850. The unexpended balance for all funds is $40,159,907.47, which is the same as the bank balances for the same time period. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Reesner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to accept the Finance Director's report and bank reconciliation month ending August 2024.
Thank you. There's a motion to accept the Finance Director's report and bank reconciliation for the month of August. Is there a second? Councilmember Thacker.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, Director of Law, Zach Fowler.
Thank you. Just real briefly, as Councilmember Hayes was reading his report, I caught that on ordinance 2478, I did not include that emergency clause as asked, so I will fix that for next time, and then that can just be amended to include that. So that's what happens when I'm sick. Make a few mistakes.
Okay. Anything else from you? Okay. Thank you. We are now under written communications.
Thank you. We have Mayor's request for legislation number 24-42, appointment to the Thomas Connor Memorial Commission.
Thank you. Mayor's request for legislation number 24-42 will be assigned to the Personnel and Labor Relations Committee.
Finance Director's request for legislation number F24-47 to amend the 2024 budget ordinance 23-94 to appropriate additional funds into the general fund budget.
Thank you. Finance Director's request F24-47 is prepared this evening as ordinance 24-79.
And Finance Director's request for legislation number F24-48 to amend the 2024 budget ordinance, 23-94 to appropriate funds into the general administration and street budgets.
Thank you. Finance Director's request F24-48 is prepared tonight as ordinance 24-79 and ordinance 24-80.
And that concludes the written communications.
Thank you. We are now under oral communications. Anyone wishing to address council may step to the podium, sign in, and direct their questions to myself. Okay. All right. We are now under motions. Are there any motions this evening? Okay. We are now under resolutions and ordinances.
We have ordinance number 2024-70 introduced by Kevin Reesner, an ordinance amending the 2024 budget ordinance 23-94 to appropriate Ohio EMA grant funds into the police, dispatch, and fire budgets.
Thank you. This is the third reading of ordinance 24-70. Councilmember Reesner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for passage of ordinance 2024-70.
Thank you. There is a motion for passage of ordinance 24-70. Is there a second? Councilmember Herniman.
I second that motion, Madam President.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we will vote on the passage.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Reesner.
Yes.
Snee.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Hayes.
Yes.
Herniman.
Yes.
And Kaler.
Yes.
Ordinance 24-70 passes with a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance number 2024-72 introduced by Kevin Reesner, an ordinance to amend section 143.05 of the codified ordinances.
Thank you. This is the second reading of ordinance 24-72.
Ordinance number 2024-73 introduced by Kevin Reesner, an ordinance to amend section 135.14 of the codified ordinances.
Thank you. This is the second reading of ordinance 24-73.
Ordinance number 2024-76 introduced by Kevin Reesner, an ordinance amending the 2024 budget ordinance 23-94 to appropriate funds into the street budget.
This is the second reading of ordinance 24-76.
Ordinance number 2024-77 introduced by Cheyenne Thacker, An ordinance authorizing and directing the city administrator to prepare plans and specifications, advertise for and receive bids, recommend and execute a contract for the 2025 street paving program, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. This is the first reading of ordinance 24-77.
Ordinance number 2024-78, introduced by John Hayes. An ordinance to amend the firefighters' civil service entrance and promotion requirements by amending sections 143.02 and 143.03 and chapter 149 of the codified ordinances.
This is the first reading of ordinance 24-78.
Ordinance number 2024-79, introduced by Kevin Reesner. An ordinance amending the 2024 budget ordinance 23-94 to appropriate funds into the general fund budget.
This is the first reading of ordinance 24-79. Councilmember Reesner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for immediate passage of ordinance 2024-79, suspending City Council's reading rule.
Thank you. There is a motion for suspension of council's three reading rule and passage of ordinance 24-79. Is there a second? Councilmember Snee.
Yes, I'd like to second that motion, Madam President.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilmember Reesner.
A little information on this one, as the finance director noted, this is two parts. The first one is for income tax transfers, make sure there's enough in the budget. This is in the amount of $209,000. And also $15,000 needs to be done for old landfill inspections.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, we will first vote on the suspension.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Reesner.
Yes.
Snee.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Hayes.
Yes.
Herniman.
Yes.
And Kaler.
Yes.
Suspension passes with a vote of 7-0. We'll now vote on the passage.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Reesner.
Yes.
Snee.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Hayes.
Yes.
Herniman.
Yes.
And Kaler.
Yes.
Ordinance 24-79 passes with a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance number 2024-80, introduced by Kevin Reesner. An ordinance amending the 2024 budget ordinance 23-94 to transfer $19,200 within the street maintenance fund and declaring an emergency.
This is the first reading of ordinance 24-80. Councilmember Reesner.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for immediate passage of ordinance 2024-80, suspending City Council's reading rule.
Thank you. There is a motion for suspension of council's three reading rule and immediate passage of ordinance 24-80. Is there a second? Councilmember Hayes.
I second that motion.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilmember Reesner.
This is just a transfer between a full-time employee, as the finance director noted, from full-time employee, the amount of $19,200 into a contract employee account.
Councilmember Thacker.
I think it's technically a part-time employee, right? Not a full-time employee, but I just wanted to make
Oh, yeah.
that clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, we will first vote on the suspension.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Reesner.
Yes.
Snee.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Hayes.
Yes.
Herniman.
Yes.
And Kaler.
Yes.
Suspension passes with a vote of 7-0. We'll now vote on the emergency.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Reesner.
Yes.
Snee.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Hayes.
Yes.
Herniman.
Yes.
And Kaler.
Yes.
Emergency passes with a vote of 7-0. We'll now vote on the passage.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Reesner.
Yes.
Snee.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Hayes.
Yes.
Herniman.
Yes.
And Kaler.
Yes.
Ordinance 24-80 passes with a vote of 7-0.
And that concludes the legislation.
Okay, thank you. We are now under other business. Hayes.
Thank you. As Chair of the Personnel and Labor Relations Committee meeting, I'd like to propose that I will be signing legislation accepting Mayor's request for legislation 24-42. This is a reappointment of Cade Rowe to the Thomas Connor Memorial Commission. If okay with committee and anybody else, we'll be doing that to vote on next meeting.
To have legislation prepared. Yeah,
Yes.
sure. Any discussion or questions on that? Awesome. Okay, thank you. Any other business to come before council this evening? This might be a record 7:20. All right, well, if nothing else, we can adjourn. Thank you, everyone.